You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to The Bible Guys. And today, if you're listening day by day, is Friday.
That's correct.
TGIF.
Yay!
Yes, and we love Fridays.
Hey, you haven't sung Good Morning to us in forever.
Good morning, good morning. We talk the whole night through. Good morning. Good morning to you. Nothing could be, wait. Nothing could be something than to be in Louisiana. Nothing could, I don't know what he says. Because it's the two guys.
Yes.
Nothing could be greater than being in Louisiana.
There you go.
And then Debbie Reynolds comes in. Oh. In the morning. Yeah. Yep.
It's so funny.
Yep.
It's so funny that you take it so seriously. That's the...
Hey, well, did I tell you that my son is he's dating a girl, and he sends her a little GIF that says "Good morning," and it's a little clip from Singing in the Rain. Mm-hmm. And she says, "Where is this from?" And so last night he tells me, he goes, "Dad," he goes, "we're going to go out to dinner tomorrow night, which will be tonight." Mm-hmm. And he says, "And I'm going to come back," and he goes, "and we're going to watch Singing in the Rain." And I said, "Oh, cool. Why that movie?" And he told me the story about the GIF, and he said. He goes, when she told me, "Where's that from?" He said, "This is unacceptable."
You have to know.
He said, I can't have that.
If you're going to be a part of this family, around this family.
That's right. Which means he is definitely my son, right? He's a part of my family.
That's right.
Because I love those old movies.
Yes.
And by the way, if you're a person who hasn't watched old movies, let me encourage you, listener, to not only watch Singing in the Rain, but there's a hidden gem that I want you to look up. And it's a movie it's completely black and white, and it's Gene Kelly, same guy, but it's also with Judy Garland. Oh. And this is young Judy Garland, like right outside of Wizard of Oz, early 1940s. Yeah. And it's called For Me and My Gal.
Oh, yeah.
The bells are ringing for me and my gal.
There you go. I remember that one.
And I'm telling you what, it is a great, great movie. For Me and My Gal.
Okay.
Hidden
there
gem.
You go. That was 2 minutes of bonus material for our listeners. I'm sure they were riveted. So,
bonus material.
Oh, good. I was hoping he'd talk about old movies.
Said no one ever.
Ooh, a black and white one?
Wow. Yeah. And the hits just keep on coming.
So, hey, our listeners, our longtime listeners know that.
You remember Brian Riggin? I was wishing he'd do that. Wishing upon a star.
So our longtime listeners know that we only bring the most important news from the finest sources, and sometimes commentary as well. Mm-hmm. Well, this one, we're really into health too. Yes. The ones that are watching can tell we're really into health. Are you a runner, Chris?
I am not a runner. I'm against running.
You're getting ready to sponsor a run.
Yes.
What is it?
It's a 5K.
Yeah, for what?
We just adopted a new global partner called Transform One, which is an anti-sex trafficking ministry in the Dominican Republic. It's the 4th largest trafficked place in the world. Yeah. And we are partnering with them. And so the first Saturday of October, we are doing a 5K. We're announcing it, by the way, on July 14th at Heritage. Yeah. And we're going to be I'm praying for at least 500 people to run and to raise $1,000 each, and I'm praying for $500,000, which is $500,000. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to plant a church in one of the sectors. And by the way, once we do this, we're going to do it 7 more times, in the 7 sectors. So we want to build a building, buy a plot of land, build a building, and this church can be the epicenter where all the children come, and we do our Helping Hands community, where we actually, give away food and have fun with the kids, because we're looking for holistic change in the next generation. Right. And also it could be a center for a safe house and different things. And not to mention...
Yeah, so one of the best things we can do is prevent.
Yes, prevent.
Right? So you can watch on TV the anti-trafficking things, and they, in the movies, they kick in the doors and all those kinds of things. But even better than trying to rescue somebody from it, which we want to do, and which this organization does, even better is to prevent it before it ever happens.
That's right.
Before the life is ever ruined, right? Yeah. And so that's really what we're looking at investing in. And so you're hosting an event coming up.
Yeah. It's a 5K. It's a run walk. Yeah. So
are you running it or walking it?
I'll probably do a little both.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know what I plan on doing? You know how like when you show up an event as a pastor, you sort of walk around and just say hi to all the people.
Yes.
I think what I'm going to do is as people are running, I'll run with them and talk, and then I'll slow down and I'll walk with the people who are walking.
I'm thinking about buying an electric scooter. And just
that's not
zipping
allowed.
it out of each one.
I'm not allowed.
That's not allowed. You're not going to take my money?
No.
You won't take my money for that event?
I will take I'll take the donation.
Oh, okay, then I'm right.
Hey, by the way, since you've brought me this far, let me just say this. I know that prostitution, of course, is it exists in every part of the world, right? Just about. But in the Dominican Republic, it really has, in many ways, taken over the entire country.
Right.
And it's really destroying the whole country.
Right.
And it's a very big thing. And so
much of the tourism is built around it, right? The economy is built around it.
Yeah. And so let me just say two things. And this is what I want you to hear, because I need to remind myself that people are listening from around the world. And that is two things. Number one, Transform One is the name of the ministry. Transform One focuses on rescuing children, which is underaged girls.
Trafficked.
Right, who are trafficked.
Well, and boys. 40% is boys.
40% is boys.
That's right.
So far, we've focused on girls, but we're not against rescuing boys. And then, so that's a big part of the ministry. And then the second thing is this. I would absolutely love it if you would take a moment to make a donation. And it would be wonderful for me to see, because I'm on the board, to see if a donation comes in from around the world. Hey, we got a donation from Australia, or from Hungary, or we got a donation from Germany. Right. Would you take a moment and go to transform1.org? Transform, and then it's the number one word, transform1.org, and just hit donation. And if you want to, you can even list it as a Heritage Church Partner, which is a pull down as the pull down menu.
Sure.
But any donation anywhere, it could be anything, $10, up to whatever.
Can they leave a note? Can they make a note on that?
Yes, you can write a note.
Write Bible Guys.
Yeah, write Bible Guys. Yeah. I believe you can write a note. If not, then as long as you select Heritage Church Partner, then we'll know it comes from this podcast if it's around the world.
Sure.
But man, wouldn't that be cool? I'm excited now because we've never done this. And thank you for asking me about that.
So there you go. So the reason why is because, again, back to full circle, back to only the finest information that we get out, that we bring to our listeners. This is from the Babylon Bee.
Yes.
And as you start working out here pretty soon, running in order to build up your ability to run, walk half of your 5K, here's the headline. Half-hearted jog turns into all-out sprint whenever car drives by. When you know people are watching, you run faster, right?
It's so funny.
So Raleigh, North Carolina. Local man Sam Williamson's listless, apathetic jog instantly transformed into a full-on sprint whenever a car drove by this morning. According to sources, Williamson had set off at a decent pace, but within 30 seconds settled into a gait that barely met the definition of a jog.
That's me.
He intermittently took a step that was more like a power walk than would ramp back up to an ambling, languid jog. Then, at the sound of a car engine in the distance, Williamson's drooping head snapped to attention and he leapt deer-like into a respectable jog.
Deer-like.
Not seeing any car, Williamson began to relax his pace, but then around the corner, a block ahead, a white Expedition with what appeared to be a female driver appeared. Like a flash of lightning, Williamson launched into an all-out sprint, bolting down the sidewalk with a ferocious determination. Though his body cried out in pain, a jolt of adrenaline surged through Williamson's veins, pushing all thoughts of slowing down aside. He locked his gaze straight ahead to ensure no eye contact to be made with the Expedition's driver, then chose a tree 3 houses past his target line. Williamson sprinted like the wind. Then, with the Expedition sufficiently in the rear view, Williamson stumbled back into a half-walk, half-jog, sucking air desperately.
Yes.
His lungs afire and side cramping, Williamson resigned to a brief walk before reassuming his sluggish jog. At publishing time, the same exact scene had repeated itself 9 more times.
That's so good. And you know what? I mean, like, I made a joke that I was against running, but I used to run a little bit. And every runner... they know if you run, you know that this is really funny.
It's true.
All of it is true, right? And it's so great. And by the way, it's also a weird thing to run and then have people watch you.
It is.
Yeah, when you run in like a really, really public place, you know everybody at the stoplight's looking at you.
And you're just kind of
flailing along.
Yep. Hey, I wanted to say as we jump into this, because we're still in the Tabernacle here, and we will for a couple more days. if you are interested in reading more about these things, one, Life Application Study Bible is great. It has a lot of notes in it.
Sure
but
does.
I'd also say Warren Wiersbe has a really good small commentary on this, and it's in his B series. He wrote a whole bunch of books, Be This, Be That, and this one is from Be Delivered, and it's the whole book of Exodus.
Oh, and those are decently small books.
Yeah. They're not. It's not too heavy. It's easy to read. And Warren Wiersbe, incredibly intelligent man, but was able to write on a very, very simple level. And so I just really appreciated his notes on those things. So
the B series is fantastic.
Yeah. So that whole thing is published by David C. Cook. So it's just Warren Wiersbe, Be Delivered. It's the book of Exodus, Finding Freedom by Following God.
We should probably do that more, recommend resources like that, because...
we're just scratching the surface in, the 20 minutes we get to talk about these things.
For certain.
Okay, so today we're talking about plans for the lampstand. So we've already talked about the Ark of the Covenant. We've already talked about the table of presence, the showbread, and then here's the lampstand. And you'll recognize this because of the menorah, right? So the menorahs that you see around, it's very similar. It's God says in Exodus chapter 25 verse 31, "Make a lampstand of pure hammered gold. Make the entire lampstand and its decorations of one piece." The base, center, stem, lamp cups, buds, and petals. Make it with 6 branches going out from the center stem, 3 on each side. Each of the 6 branches will have 3 lamp cups shaped like almond blossoms, complete with buds and petals. Craft the center stem of the lampstand with 4 lamp cups shaped like almond blossoms, complete with buds and petals. And there will also be an almond bud beneath each pair of the branches, where the 6 branches extend from the center stem. The almond buds and branches must all be of one piece with the center stem, and they must be hammered from pure gold. Then make the 7 lamps for the lampstand and set them so that they reflect their light forward. The lamp snuffers and trays must also be made of pure gold, and you will need 75 pounds of pure gold for the lampstand and its accessories. Be sure that you make everything according to the pattern I've shown you here on the mountain.
Wow.
There you go.
And the lampstand represents the light, right? So it represents the light that God gives, and also from a very practical sense, it was the source of light in the holy place.
That's correct.
So the golden lampstand in the wilderness tabernacle provided light for the holy place, but it was also steeped in religious symbolism, with all the elements inside the tabernacle's tent of the meeting were overlaid with gold. The lampstand alone, known as the menorah, golden candlestick, and candelabrum, was constructed of... Candelabra. Oh, that's how you spell candelabra?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Was constructed of solid gold, according to this one. This gold for sacred furniture was given to the Israelites by the Egyptians when the Jews fled Egypt.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And it represents the life and the light that God gives to his people. So it's interesting. Jeff and I were talking about some photos that we were looking at right before we started the podcast.
Drawings. There were no photos.
I said photos.
Yeah.
We have proof. We have it on tape.
It's on video.
No, the drawings. And I've seen it before where the lamp, a stand, in other words, this menorah, was probably maybe a couple feet high. And it was made of solid gold, and it was placed on a table. I've seen that probably more times than not. But this particular picture had it larger than a person. In fact, I would say quite larger than a person. This one right here. I mean, it's twice the size, right?
Yeah, it's big.
It's probably 12 feet high.
Right.
In this case, that would have to be like some kind of wood, with a gold overlay. But what's interesting about this, the instructions of this, is that even though that pure is different than solid, what's interesting about it is God had just given instructions about the Ark of the Covenant, mm-hmm. and very specifically said wood with an overlay of gold. Right. And then he gave instructions about the table and said wood with an overlay of gold. So I have to believe this is solid gold.
And
otherwise,
he's saying hammered pure gold.
Hammered pure gold, but I have to believe it's solid mm-hmm. and only gold,
right?
Because otherwise God would have said wood.
I'm not against it.
Yes,
I'm not against your assessment.
Although there's room for wood with an overlay of gold,
right?
But it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, all I was pointing out was pure gold doesn't mean solid gold.
Yes, and I agree.
Right, but he doesn't have any other wood mentioned in here, and he says he wants it all of one piece.
Right, yeah. And when you compare it to the other scriptures, it doesn't make any sense if there would have been wood included in here, right?
Right.
So chances are it wasn't twice as big as this man, as shown right here, because that would be way more than 75 pounds if this was solid gold.
That's correct.
This would be like 600 pounds, 700 pounds. So chances are, I was referring to, think of a weight. So I went and worked out yesterday, and
I could tell. You are so ripped today.
Can you?
You are so buffed.
Can you?
So buff.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I went and worked out yesterday, and I went up to the rack of weights, and I grabbed the 10-pound weight.
Mm-hmm. At least. I was guessing.
Yeah.
Man, you could have done 12 pounds if you wanted to.
Yeah, if I wanted to. You could be drinking whole milk if you wanted to. But Napoleon Dynamite.
Yep.
So, but on this rack of dumbbells was I think the largest one was 100 pounds, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's like a 75-pound weight. Well, the thing's only this big. I mean, it's not much bigger than a massive loaf of bread, you know? And so the candlestick, if it was, thin, and the menorah having these branches that fanned out, it could have probably been, a couple feet high, maybe 2.5 feet high, I would imagine. And 75 pounds is quite heavy.
Yeah.
But what I love about this is that this would have taken probably way longer to make, because each leaf being hammered out. And so these guys were slaves. And so chances are they were master craftsmen, right? There's no lack of trade here, right? So you can imagine that there would have been, this thing would have been beautiful. And they would have called, the best craftsmen together to work on this, in fact, probably there's no shortage of multiple people. Right. Which means this thing could have been constructed pretty quickly.
Yeah. So it would have been a pretty substantial thing. It would have been across the room. So this is in the holy place, right? This would have been across the room from the table that we talked about yesterday with the bread on it.
Right.
And it was very substantial. It would have been on the south side, which is kind of because there's a very specific way to set up the tabernacle, and it symbolized a lot of different aspects with their relationship with God. It symbolizes God's eternal presence and guidance, right? That God will always guide them, always give them light. David talks about how your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path, right? Yeah. And how God is going to provide that light. The oil was supposed to go, the flame on all 7 of those lamps was supposed to go perpetual. It's always, so they were always keeping it burning from night till morning, always. And it was supposed to represent the fact that God never leaves his people, that God's leading, God's guidance, God's illumination never leaves his people. And then it also, just as everything else, we forgot to mention how Jesus was represented in the table yesterday.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So the wood, and this is where they would view it, is that the wood represented the earthly. Acacia is a very common wood there. It was a very common thing, very earthy, and gold being very transcendent, right? So the humanity of Christ and the transcendence of Christ is where that would have been. Well, on this one, the lampstand also represents Jesus. He's referred to as the light of the world. Right. And Jesus said, "I'm the light of the world," right? And John mentions that and so many other passages. And then he goes on, he says, "And you are the light of the world." So it talks about how if we are people of love in God, then we also are people of light, and his light is in us. And so that's a big part of that. So this represents both that God's presence would be with them and that God would show them the way, and that his illumination would always, 24 hours a day, be available to them, but then also that they were also supposed to be light to the dark world around them, which was one of the commissions that God had given the people of Israel, even though they kind of retreated from society. They were supposed to be light in society. And so that was a big part of that. I
remember teaching a message one time where I talked about how, I know that the light of the Holy Spirit, if we're Christians, we have the power of the Holy Spirit in us. And so when it says, "Let your light so shine," in Matthew chapter 5, right? Yes. It says, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." I actually thought to myself, even though that there's a light inside of us, I thought the best way to visualize it is to think about you standing here. And so for those watching, you can see I'm using my coffee cup.
Yeah.
So if you're standing here, and let's just pretend that Jesus is behind you, right? So even though the light comes inside of you, just think of it this way. And then think of the world in front of you, right?
Right.
In order for the light to shine through you, you have to have a transparent posture, right? Transparent of sin, and so when we're clogged up with all the dirt in our lives, nobody can really see the light of God coming out of our lives. So think about, this vessel of yourself being filled with a bunch of gunk, a bunch of darkness and blackness and dirty, rotten stuff in our lives. Well, the light of God can't shine from us or through us. But the more that we empty ourselves of pride and empty ourselves of our own will, empty ourselves of sins or bad habits, the more transparent we become, and then the light shines through, and then the world can see the light.
Yeah.
Looking back at it, I taught that in college. I probably wouldn't teach that today because technically the light comes from within, right?
Right.
But still,
the light comes from Christ.
Yeah,
right.
The Holy Spirit inside of us.
We should reflect Him.
Right. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Mm-hmm. So, but either way, though, it's the idea of the light shines when we are submitted to God and we don't have all that stuff that's blocking it, right? Like the blockage.
Yeah.
So, and I also love how he says in that same passage, by the way, where he says, "Men don't light a candle and put it under a bushel."
Right.
He says because that would defeat the purpose. Right. He says they don't do that. He says what do? They stick it on a candlestick and they put it up high where it gives light to the whole house.
Right.
And he says a city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. And so he says, so therefore let your light so shine so that everybody can see it.
So then this thing being made likely of solid gold, pure gold, the value of God making this a part of His worship, the light being a part of His worship. Jesus came to take men out of darkness and into the light. That was His whole, you read that in John. And so we have to be aware of the same thing, that it's the value that God places on allowing Christ's light to shine in the world around us is of highest importance. And sometimes instead we do cover it up. We don't hide it. I mean, we don't let it shine. We hide it. And so, again, I was talking about all these things are made of gold that God gave them from pillaging Egypt, and they didn't even need it out in the desert. Right. But a bunch of they're lugging all this heavy gold around with them, and it is useless. I think a lot of times we lug around all the things that we think are so important, and then we hide the things that are most important. And I think that would be a temptation as well here with the lampstand. So, hey, let your light shine this week. That's really the idea, that God's word is the lamp to your feet to show you the way. And then you are supposed to be the light in the world because of Jesus' light in you. So.
And 1 John tells us to walk in the light.
That's right, as He is in the light.
Yeah. I want to be in the light as you are in the light. I want to shine like the stars in the heavens.
Oh, Lord.
All right. Yeah, that's right. So, hey, and then there's also what?
This DC Talk. You know how old you are when you're singing
DC Talk,
DC
right?
Talk. Yep.
Hey, well, listen, that's about our time. So we will see you next time on Monday as we continue this series on the Bible Guys.